6 p.m. Assalamu alaikum. This is Radio Pakistan. The news read by Daman Zaman. The headlines. The Minister for Science and Technology has urged the opposition parties in the Senate to develop consensus in order to smoothly run democracy and the country. The foreign minister says people of Pakistan will thwart the nefarious designs of the enemy forces to destabilize the country. The Chinese ambassador has appreciated the government's efforts to bring economic stability in the country and conveyed interest of the Chinese private sector to invest in Pakistan. In occupied Kashmir, the APHC leadership says India is hell-bent upon robbing the Kashmiris of their civilization, culture, and religious identity. In India, protests over the controversial Citizenship Amendment Act continue on the 20th consecutive day today. North Korea has pledged to further develop its nuclear program and introduce a new strategic weapon in the near future. And now the news in detail. And before we move on to our main headlines, we take you live to the speech of the Prime Minister.
मेरिटोक्रेसी का सिस्टम लेके आना, अपने इदारे मजबूत करना और फिर तालीम को जो हमने तवज्जो देनी थी वो अब दे, जो हमने माजी में नहीं दी। आज अगर हमारे हालात अच्छे नहीं तो इसमें एक बहुत बड़ी वजह ये है कि हमने एजुकेशन के ऊपर एम्फेसिस नहीं दिया। और एक वक्त पे पाकिस्तान की यूनिवर्सिटीज मेरी जिंदगी में 60s के अंदर हमारी सारी डिग्रीज इंटरनेशनली रिकॉग्नाइज थी। मिडिल ईस्ट से बच्चे यहां पढ़ने आया करते थे, स्टूडेंट्स इधर आते थे। तो हमारे देखते देखते क्योंकि हमने एम्फेसिस नहीं दिया एजुकेशन पे, तो आहिस्ता आहिस्ता हमारी जो ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट होनी चाहिए थी वो नहीं हुई। जो नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम थे, उनकी कुरान में हमें हुक्म है कि उनकी जिंदगी से सीखो, उनकी सुन्नत पे चलो। तो उन्होंने जंगे बदर के बाद, जबकि सारे मुसलमानों के पास हथियार भी नहीं थे, तो तब उन्होंने ये जो तालीम के ऊपर एक कौम का ज़हन लगाया था कि जब आप कैदियों को वापस करते थे पैसे मिलते थे।
Yes, that was the Prime Minister addressing a ceremony at the inauguration of a new block of the Air University in Islamabad. The Minister for Science and Technology, Chaudhry Fawad Hussain, has urged the opposition parties to develop consensus over major issues to smoothly run democracy and the country. Speaking in the upper house today, he said democracy demands minimum consensus so that the process of progress and prosperity may continue. He also requested the opposition to establish minimum common agenda on major issues, including the process of accountability and the Election Commission. Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf leader Faisal Javed said today the world's renowned economic institutions, including the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, Moody's, and Bloomberg, are acknowledging the improved economic situation of Pakistan due to the prudent economic policies of the incumbent government. The Senate will meet again tomorrow at 3 in the afternoon. The Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has said enemies of Pakistan have launched a hybrid war against the country aimed at creating unrest through religious and linguistic divide, but they will not succeed in their nefarious designs. He was addressing the first session of Hazrat Shah Rukunuddin Alam Soharwardi Rahmatullah Alayh conference in Multan today. The Foreign Minister said minorities in India, including Muslim community, are suffering unrest and atrocities as the current regime in India is following the agenda of the supremacy of Hindutva. He also prayed for the freedom of occupied Kashmir, ending the sufferings of Muslims in India, peace and stability in Afghanistan and the Middle East. The Chinese ambassador to Pakistan, Yao Xing, called on Prime Minister's advisor on finance and revenue, Dr. Abdul Hafiz Sheikh, in Islamabad today. During the meeting, the Chinese ambassador informed the Pakistani side about Chinese president's expected visit to Pakistan in the middle of this year. During the meeting, both the sides agreed to accelerate work on the ongoing projects in areas of economy, infrastructure, research, and development. They also discussed to speed up the work on the ongoing projects under the second phase of CPAC and Chinese investment in social and cultural sectors of Pakistan. The Chinese ambassador appreciated Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf government's efforts to bring economic stability in the country and conveyed the interest of Chinese private sector to invest in Pakistan. The Federal Minister for Planning, Development and Reforms, Asad Omar, has stressed the need to accelerate the pace of development work in the country. Addressing a joint news conference along with the Federal Minister for Maritime Affairs, Ali Haider Zaidi, and the Sindh Governor, Imran Ismail, in Islamabad today, he said the federal government is completing various development projects under the public-private partnership. Replying to a question regarding development projects in Sindh, the minister said federal government had already released all the allocated funds for the ongoing development projects in the Sindh province, including Karachi. Pakistan and India have officially exchanged the lists of nuclear installations and facilities in their respective countries. According to the Foreign Office, the list of Pakistan's nuclear installations was handed over to the Indian representative in Islamabad, while the list from the Indian side was received by the Pakistani representative in New Delhi. The handing and taking over of the lists is binding on both the countries on the 1st of January every year, in accordance with the agreement on prohibition of attacks against nuclear installations and facilities between the two countries. Pakistan also handed over a list of 282 Indian prisoners in the country to the High Commission of India in Islamabad today. This step is consistent with the provisions of the Consular Access Agreement between Pakistan and India, under which both the countries are required to exchange lists of prisoners twice a year. This is Radio Pakistan. In occupied Kashmir, the all-party Hurriyat Conference leader Bilal Siddiqui has said India is hell-bent upon robbing the Kashmiris of their civilization, culture, and religious identity. In a media interview in Srinagar today, he pointed out that the controversial Citizenship Amendment Act and the National Register of Citizens had proved that BJP-led Indian government intends to make the survival of the Muslims impossible, not only in the occupied territory, but also in entire India. He said such moves have vindicated the struggle of the Kashmiri people against New Delhi's brutal repression, and added that they would in no case reconcile with the Indian occupation. Bilal Siddiqui said in order to cripple the Kashmiris economically, the Indian government was deliberately disallowing trucks laden with perishable goods, especially apples, to reach the Indian markets by halting their movement on the Srinagar-Jammu highway every now and then. Meanwhile, the Jammu and Kashmir Coalition of Civil Society, a local human rights group, in its annual report released in Srinagar, said there were mass arrests, torture, killings, harassment, military lockdown, curfew, and gag on media and internet during the year 2019. In India, protests over the controversial Citizenship Amendment Act entered the 20th day today. Hundreds of people, including women in South Delhi's Shaheen Bagh, staged a strong protest against the new law. They were holding placards in their hands inscribed with slogans, "No to Citizenship Act" and "We the people of India want a new Prime Minister." Indian diaspora in the United States also held a protest rally against the new law. North Korea has pledged to further develop its nuclear program and introduce a new strategic weapon in the near future. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said this after a policy meeting in Pyongyang. However, he signaled there is still room for dialogue with the United States. Meanwhile, the American President Donald Trump has said he had a good relationship with the North Korean leader and expressed the hope that he would keep his words. In Iraq, people have hurled stones and torched a security post at the American embassy in Baghdad. However, the embassy guards used tear gas to repel the protesters. Meanwhile, the State Department said diplomatic personnel inside are safe and that there are no plans to evacuate them. In Indonesia, 9 people died in torrential rains following flood in Jakarta today. And finally, the weather. Skardu has recorded the lowest temperature of minus 20.7 degrees in December 2019, which broke 40 years record. According to Director Pakistan Meteorological Department Zahir Babar, Skardu had recorded minus 17.2 degrees centigrade in 1961, which was the lowest temperature among the northern areas. He said in December 2018, Skardu recorded minus 13.6 degrees centigrade. Cold and dry weather is expected in most parts of the country during the next 24 hours. However, rain, thunderstorm with snowfall over the mountains with cloudy weather conditions is expected in isolated places in northwest Balochistan, upper Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, upper Punjab, Islamabad, Kashmir, and Gilgit-Baltistan. Dense fog is likely to prevail in most plain areas of the Punjab and upper Sindh during morning and night hours. And that is the end of this news bulletin. For more news and analyses, log on to our website, radio.gov.pk. And you can also watch the live video streaming of our bulletins on the link, facebook.com/Radio Pakistan News Official.